town hall for District 12. We're trying to figure out exactly how many there have been. I think there have been 38 since last March. So it's a lot. And in fact, if you read the e-news or saw the social media, we've got another one next week, and it'll be David Leineger, who's our interim DART CEO. And he'll be here to talk about things that are happening with the Cotton Belt Rail and the construction and where we're at in the process, and answer all your questions. At our last town hall, 2 times ago, he had been on the call, and a lot of the questions sort of went that way, and so he agreed to come back for this next one. So we're looking forward to that. But today we have the first time where we've had 2 special guests, and one of them I know would like to present to us and get feedback, and the other I think is really on to be able to answer our questions. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and introduce them both to you. The first one is Jared White. Jared's worked for the city of Dallas for 15 years. Before that, he worked for the North Central Texas Council of Governments. And he's got this great combination of experience working with pedestrian and bicycle and rail. And so you can imagine that we're super excited that he is working on our Cotton Belt Trail. So the Cotton Belt, 26-mile rail line, Plano to the airport, but all along that rail will also be a trail. So the section in Dallas, it's really important that we get it right. And so I'm really glad that Jared's here. He wants to show you some slides, get some input, and you can ask all sorts of questions. The second special guest is Tim Oliver, and Tim is our interim director of sanitation. And as you know, we've been having a number of challenges, especially with our bulk trash. And so he's going to be here to answer any questions that you might have specifically about that, and maybe give you a little update about things that are happening with that department. So with no further ado, I'll just tell our guests specifically, we generally ask for you to talk 5 minutes or less, and kind of give an overview of what you want. Jared, you've got sort of a different situation, so do your presentation, but do it as short as you can. Tim, if you want to say a little bit, that'd be great too. I generally will do like a 5-minute from City Hall, like things you want to know. But since we just had the e-news, which is pretty much everything I want to tell you, I'll maybe just call out a couple items, and then we're just going to go to your questions. Any question you have, whether it's for Jared, whether it's for Tim, for me, if it's about something totally different or input you want to give, this is your meeting. So at 7:05, we stop the meeting at 8 o'clock. And of course, you'll have another opportunity next week. So with that, Jared, you can take it away.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, this evening for the opportunity. And I will talk fast. I know I put a lot of slides in, but I can go through them quickly. So let me share my screen real quick, and we will just get going, because I want to hear y'all talk. Y'all don't need to hear me. So hopefully you're seeing a title slide for the presentation. Everybody seeing that? Okay. Well, we'll just go through it. So as council member said, this is part of a much larger project for a trail that will extend from the north end of DFW Airport to the city of Plano. So we'll talk about just some general background. We'll go through that. I think everyone kind of knows about what the trail is. I will touch on these critical sections, but then we can come back to that, because I think that's where the questions are going to be. And then I also have kind of zoomed in snapshots of the preliminary alignment that I took out of Google Earth. So if there's a specific area that we need to look at, I can probably go to that and we can look in a little bit more closely. Again, this is already said, it's a 12-foot wide trail. It's partnership with the Council of Governments and DART. And kind of an important note is, even though we've been talking about the trail for quite some time now, official design only started in January. So we're at the point now where we're getting really interactive. We're going to start coming to you with a lot more information, because we're going to have a lot more information to share since we have started design. Getting a quick look at the alignment. It extends kind of diagonally through far north Dallas, from Arapahoe at the DNT over to the city of Richardson at Waterview. And some of the preliminary areas that we're looking at more intently include Preston Green Park. We're looking at options of routing the trail through the park. There's some issues with the alignment and the impacts to the creek that we need to look at. Another big area is the Hillcrest Road crossing. This is a coordination, more of an effort to ensure that with the construction of Hillcrest, we build everything at once and we only close Hillcrest one time and we get it all done. Another big one, I know this is going to come up, is the Preston Bridge Trail. This is a big one for us, and ensuring that we have a safe crossing. We're looking at different grade separation options. There's pros and cons to each of those, but we are trying to analyze what may work best. Then Coit Road has been one we're looking at also. And then the issue here at Coit primarily is providing access to the trail from the south side of the corridor. Due to the way Coit is going to be raised to a bridge, the train's going down into a trench that serves as a barrier to anybody who's on the south side. So we've done an analysis on how can we get from one side of the trail or one side of the tracks to the other, provide access from both sides. So next steps, this is the big one that we've been waiting for. So DART will provide the 30% plans right before the 4th of July. So that's when we will actually be able to see how things are starting to lay out on the ground. Because up till now, we pretty much just had a line on the map without any real detail. So we're going to have a lot more information starting this summer and this fall. So we'll get those plans, we'll make our comments, and then we'll very likely start planning our bigger community meetings. Combination, I would see, of town halls like this, targeted meetings with neighborhoods if there's a specific issue, but then having the bigger meetings where we're talking about the project as a whole. So that's really, really fast. Again, I have some support documentation. I'd like to hear what questions you all might have, and we can start going through things. And I just have my background up there for my information if you'd like to have it.
Well, great. Why don't we keep that slide up for a minute so that anybody could contact you directly? But feel free to go ahead and start putting any questions you might have in the chat. We'll go through them in the order that they're listed. We don't do the game of only answering the questions that we like. And we'll go ahead and hear from Tim. And then, like I said, I'll say 2 minutes at most, and then we'll come to all your questions. So Tim, do you want to go ahead?
Hello, good evening. How is everyone today? I will pull some slides up if I can take control real quick. Bear with me as I try to get it pulled up here. Okay. All right. If you could just let me know you see the screen.
Yeah.
We can see it now. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you. So my name is Tim Oliver. I'm the interim director of sanitation services. I've been in this role about 18 months, and as well for 18 months before that, I've been the assistant director of the collections operations within the city. So I'm here to talk today about bulk and brush operations, specifically in District 12, and talk a little bit about what you're experiencing with our delays. We totally understand that in realizing that it's impacting your quality of life and the things you see on your street and have to walk around. Just wanted to give you a little bit of an update, but this slide that you're seeing right here is our weeks of service, specifically in District 12. The vast majority of District 12 is week 1 bulk and brush collections, with only a small amount in week 2. That's at the lower right-hand corner with Meandering Way kind of going up the middle. That's the only section of District 12 that is week 2. I am happy to report that after a conversation was had with Councilmember Mendelsohn, we did move some assets around, and as of 6 o'clock, week 1 in District 12 is 100% complete, with only week 2 areas remaining. I will go ahead and tell you that we are going to shift back to other areas in the city so that we can complete those week 1 areas as well. So week 2 may still be slightly delayed from what you would be accustomed to seeing. But I'm really happy to report, and I've got on the call with me today Victoria Avendano, who is the manager of the district responsible for your collections. And she really came together after we had a conversation and was able to knock out, knock out week 1 in District 12 in just 2 days. Just to give you some scope there, we're typically able to complete this area in 4 to 5 days with 5 crews. And just for perspective, we were able to get it done, but it took, I think, about 40 different trucks in the area instead of 5. So we've had 6 to 8 times the normal crews in the area, along with about 25 contractors to get it done in just a couple of days. You're probably wondering what led to this. More importantly, probably wondering why and what are we going to do to fix it. But a little bit of background here. This is what the problem is, and what we're experiencing. And what this shows is the last 4 months of tonnages in just Council District 12 alone. And you can see we've moved from around 600 tons in January. That's typical immediately after Christmas. February lightens up to 300 tons. March, we had a pickup back to around normal. And then we get to April, and this is live data. We just finished, so 1,600 tons, and it's a huge swing. And it's a swing that the way our program is currently set up, we don't do a good enough job preparing for or have the crews in place to attack those kinds of swings. And I'll tell you that this year we anticipated to a large degree this swing coming, primarily because of the February freeze. We thought that there might be some extra vegetation come out because of the freeze that killed everything, and that's exactly what we're seeing. But I'll just be frank and honest, I didn't see this big of a swing. And so I hope that illustrates a little bit of the problem that we're experiencing. And then lastly, my very last slide here is across citywide. The blue line that goes horizontal is sort of where our service is programmed, an average of what we see where we're manned. And if you look specifically at April, the gray bar, and I hope this translates well through the call here, but the gray bar in April was a record year for us, except for that June storm, the windstorm that you can see over in June. And we attributed that to the stay-at-home orders. Everyone was home. Everyone was cleaning out their garages and doing house repair. If you'll recall, we got behind then as well. And we just, the very next blue column there, right beside the gray one in April, is this past month. And you can see it's just barely ticked ahead of that. So the volumes are even greater than what the stay-at-home orders created, and we didn't do a good enough job anticipating it. We've brought contractors on. We've steadily been increasing the number of contractors to get us over that program capacity to keep up with the demand. But to Councilmember Mendelsohn's point, we haven't done a good enough job of addressing the demand. And we're here to take your questions, and hopefully I'm able to answer them. But at the same time, I hope this has been able to demonstrate a little bit of what our struggles have been, and we know that what they are, and we're hoping to work closely with council really soon to get some changes in place that might take out some of these large swings that we see this time of year. That's all I've got. I'm not sure if Assistant City Manager Joey Zapata, he was going to join. I'm not sure if he's on or not, but he was here was going to be here as well. And if he is on, he'll be here to answer questions with me. Thank you.
Well, great. Good job with the data on that. And thank you very much for getting week 1 taken care of. I did hear from a lot of people today that said, oh, they finally came to get it. So I know it's very appreciated, and it has been out for quite some time. So, okay, y'all are not doing a very good job with typing in questions, and that's not like you. So I'll just tell you from my side, like I said, hopefully everyone on here gets the e-news and you have read it. If you haven't read it yet, there are quite a few things that I think you should know about. One of them is the heads up about sanitation, mostly so that poor Navaz and Luis aren't overloaded with a million questions. Of course, there's the information about the next town halls. There's also information about the upcoming shred and sorry, let me do that. The upcoming shred and household chemical event, which will be May 22nd at the Renner Frankfurt Library from 11 to 3. And we are working for our observant Jewish community to try to come up with another location that they can drop it off earlier, since they wouldn't be able to do that. So we're trying to make sure everybody has access to it. But that flyer is in the e-news. And if you're not on the e-news, we'll just email us and we'll get you on there. So now we're getting the questions. So I think we should just go right to questions. What do y'all think? So Teresa is asking, Mr. Oliver, does this increase in the bulk from D12 include renovations and building materials? That's a good question.
So I'm going to answer that question with yes and no. The freeze created a lot of construction and demolition damage, and we did put out notice that you should have your contractor, if you've had a contractor, haul those off themselves, because our regular bulk and brush service does not include collection of construction and demolition debris. I will say that there was a lot out there, and rather than skipping it and letting it sit there just to create another problem, we were instructing crews that if it was there, even though we had put the word out, to go ahead and collect it to prevent it from just sitting there. So yes, it has contributed to the increase in volume, specifically the freeze, the damage that it did to the homes, and the materials that were set out.
Thank you. The next question is about the trail, and the question is if there'll be lighting along the trail and how wide the trail will be.
The trail will be on average about 12 feet wide. The bridges will be 16 feet wide, but by the time you get all the railings and whatnot, they'll be probably about 14. There is not any lighting that I'm aware of. Generally, when trails go in, they don't immediately have lighting along the length of the trail. We are looking at that more and more. We have built some trails recently that have had lighting either incorporated at the time, or it was like the infrastructure was put in so that if we had a partner, we could come in at a later date. But to my understanding, there will not be lighting along the trail when the first phase goes in, or when it's built.
And Jared, I think there was an exception about Coit in that as it was going underneath the street, we were going to put lighting in.
Yeah. There should be lighting underneath the bridge.
Okay, just want to make sure we get that one now. Jandis, hi Jandis, says, it appears to have a huge June for July. What are the plans to get ahead of the tonnage for June? Oh, a huge jump, is I bet what you're saying. So I think what she's saying is that, we had all that storm debris last June.
So are you able to see my screen right now again? I think this is the slide that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking at June here, that was 2019. The really big one, that's our record year, and that was after the windstorm that came through that created all of that debris. If you look immediately after it, the gray bar in June was actually last year, and so the volumes last year were back down in the normal range of what we see. So you can kind of see that we're approaching levels of what we saw with that June windstorm, for whatever the reason is, whether it's the freeze or we've just got this built up bulk and brush. I don't know why, but you can see that April and specifically April is the only one on the chart. We're approaching the volume levels of what we saw during that June storm. So I don't know that we'll see those levels again, basing it off of last year's June, but it's definitely something that we're paying some pretty close attention to, specifically based off of the numbers that we'll see coming out of May.
Great. Well, keep those contractors around for May, because it looks like you're going to need them. So Greg is asking a question that I know that you have answered for me, which is what is being done to improve communications when there's delays? How can people know that there's a delay?
So we do a couple of things, and it's obviously not enough. We send out next door notices. We have our sanitation app. We update our website as soon as we realize there's a delay. We also let 311 operators know exactly what our delay is. But there's more that we can do. We can send. We can get email groups and texts. This is probably an area that I struggle in a little bit because I how do I say this? I really have a strong desire to get back on track quickly, and my hope is that by the time I would send out a communication, that we would have already caught back up, and that obviously hasn't happened in this case. And so I didn't get a good enough job. I didn't do a good enough job getting that communication out quick enough, and I realize how important that is. And the team and I will make sure we do a better job on it moving forward. But text messages, emails, Nextdoor, Facebook, 311. All of those avenues will do a better job of pushing that information out.
Well, thank you, Tim. I will say, let's give you credit. You also sent a letter to council, and I know that it was in my last e-news as well as the most recent one. So, so we'll give you credit for that one. And then let's see, for the Cotton Belt Trail, where can we find details on which side of the tracks the trail will be on as we travel the track? Where are the crossovers? David's asking that. Jared, do you want to just kind of run through what that alignment is?
Yeah, if I can share my screen again and we can look at it quickly, then I can of course share that because this is where I have the little screenshots.
And then if you'll start at Preston Road,
okay,
and work to Waterview. We don't need to do.
Let's see. Okay, let's see. Okay, I'm sorry, my mouse is very sensitive here. Okay. So here we are for orientation. So we have Preston running north-south. This is Keller Springs coming across. There's a little roundabout. It might be difficult to see, but keep your eye on the bright yellow line. That's where the trail is. And if you kind of can see the red and blue lines together, I know it's really hard to see at this scale, but this is where the track is. And so from Preston heading to the northeast, the trail is on let's call it the southeast side.
So I'm going to say it's on the side with Fairhill.
Yes. Then as we continue, we get to Brentfield near Davenport, and this is where we switch. So you see that the trail comes up and we switch sides. So throughout the entire alignment, from all the way from the airport to Plano, the trail switches sides. There's some areas that are too constrained, or there's utilities, there's some reason. Originally, this crossing was up here at Campbell. We did not like that at all. So we had DART pull that crossing, the track crossing, back down to here because it's an easier place to cross.
And so that's Davenport, y'all.
Yes. Sorry, my street names are coming up really small. So we do cross to the opposite side, and then we continue to the northeast. We cross Campbell. Then as we continue, this is Davenport right here. And this should be Duffield. Again, I guess
So that's the Davenport that runs north-south. And what you're going to find is the rest of the way, the trail is always on the north side.
Correct. Then as we continue, so here we are at Preston Green Park. Again, there were different alignment options through here. The original alignment, if you went to the original meetings for the Silver Line, they showed the trail continuing within the dark corridor right through here. We had some concerns with that. This causes the need for a very, very large bridge as one issue. Then also, as the environmentalist that I am, I had concern about putting this right through the creek because there could be some environmental degradation potentially here. So we looked at, one of the options was, can we route it through the park? This is a little bit more than we would like. We're trying to see if we can pull this yellow line a little further so that we're not quite cutting through the park. So we're still kind of tweaking this, but likely the trail will leave the Silver Line right-of-way, enter the park through some alignment, and then re-enter when it can cross the creek at a shorter distance.
And so I do want to mention that the Parks Department is hiring a consultant to work on this park, and it will engage directly with the neighborhood about their ideas for the park, because it's going to really transform it. And I know I've heard from a number of residents who have said, please don't add a bunch of parking so that we become a giant hub. They like the idea of it being a neighborhood park, but of course, a lot of people are going to be on this trail. I think a lot more than will be riding the train. And we want to make sure it's got amenities for the people on the trail, but it also provides the quality of life that the neighbors are looking for. There's opportunities to do some really great things there. I've already talked to the water department because the creeks run through there. There's an opportunity to use some funding for some public art. There's additional dollars that are set aside where we can enhance that park, and it could use it. So I think there's some good opportunities there, but no doubt it's going to be really different, and that's why they want to make sure it's done right. And we'll have somebody who can really dedicate themselves to making sure that it meets everybody's needs.
Thank you for that. That's a good point. As we continue along, we're back here at Hillcrest. This will be a bridge. And then we continue, this is McCallum, pardon me. This will be, most of these crossings are at grade. They will be signalized. Not a full signal, it's what we call a hawk signal. We have these along the North Haven Trail if you've seen them, but you will have a stop control for the cars. And here we are at the Preston Ridge Trail. Again, this is something we're putting a lot of attention on. Right now, it's proposed to be an at-grade crossing, meaning Preston Ridge Trail will cross the tracks at grade as it does now, but with an active rail line. So we're looking at just technically how could we grade separate? Is that possible? Can we go up? Can we go down? What are the pros and cons to each? That type of thing. So we're focusing a lot of attention on this one. So there'll be more conversations here at Preston Ridge because we know how important that is. And again, we're still on the north side, and now we're approaching Coit. Now, as we get to Coit, so everything you see in blue, this is Coit right here. So Coit is going to become a bridge. So Coit is coming up about 15 feet, if I'm not mistaken, and landing over here at Osage Plaza. And the train is actually going to go down into a trench about 11 feet. So they're trying to split the difference of the clearances they need. And then the trail will stay kind of at grade. It'll be kind of built into the support structure of the trench wall itself. So the trail will not follow the train down. It stays perfectly level going all the way across. But again, the issue here at Coit is if I live over here, how do I get to the trail? So we're looking at how to get across and different options for doing that, and making sure we have nice wide sidewalks on Coit Road on this new bridge so you can get across and back and forth.
So the issue is for the folks in University Place, as well as any of the McCallum apartments, on how could they access the trail, and trying not to have the answer be only through Dickerson or Waterview.
Correct.
Like we need another option.
Correct. Then this is just kind of the University Place area itself. Again, we're still on the north side. And then our last piece is as we enter into Richardson at Waterview, it crosses back, and then it's on the south side as it moves through at least this portion of Richardson.
Great. Great job with that. Okay. Well, I love how we're going to switch back and forth. Now we're going to go back to sanitation. And the question is, do you know where the bulk trash gets delivered to, and how many miles does it take to deliver a one-way trip?
Great question. And yes, I do. Eventually, all trash waste, whether it's brush or bulk, ends up at McComas Bluff landfill. From District 12, it's about a 35-mile trip. We do have the advantage of having a transfer station about halfway, which is off of Harry Hines and Northwest Highway by Bachman Lake. That's still about a 20-mile trek. One of the advantages, if we were to be able to enhance our bulk trash program and separate the green waste, is that it would allow us to shorten that distance and perhaps take green waste, whether it be trees, branches, leaves, and take those to a closer facility where it could be mulched, the dimensions of the green waste reduced significantly, and then hauled to a separate location, whether that be a contractor down the road or to a mulching facility. So what we have been for the last few years, and will continue to do so with the council members' help, is try to enhance the program to where we get some separation to where we're actually recycling the green waste, and it's a win-win scenario. We're now diverting waste from the landfill, and we're also potentially not going to have to ship it as far. But 35 miles away to McComas Bluff landfill, 20 miles to the transfer station. Although what we're seeing right now, because of the increase in volumes that I talked about earlier, many of the trucks this week, the last 2 days, have been direct hauling from District 12 all the way down to the landfill, because the transfer stations are at max capacity as well. In order for us to continue allowing our residents to haul to the transfer stations themselves, which, for those of you that don't know, that you can haul free of charge to Bachman Transfer Station. But in order to continue to allow that happen, we have diverted our trucks, which obviously doesn't help our delay, and in many cases are hauling directly to the landfill instead of taking advantage of the transfer station.
I think that most of the people on this call will laugh when I tell you that 4 different times this week I've had staff members at City Hall say, you know, it takes a really long time to get to District 12. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Okay, so Tarek, hi Tarek, you're asking, is there a completion date target for the Cotton Belt Trail?
So short answer, not right now. So one of the issues that we're having is the pricing that we're getting on the trail itself. And we're having to look at kind of a phased approach based on how this pricing from some of our preliminary estimates is coming in now. We'll have a much better idea on how much of the trail can be built once we get to our 60% level, which, you know, again, we're going to get our 30% here in July. We'll get our 60%, you know, later in this year. I'm sorry, I don't have a good answer for you. Honestly, the pricing, the estimates are coming in much higher than we expected, and we're having to really look at how we do phasing. And this is throughout the entire corridor, not just in Dallas.
And I will say that a number of the cities, we all got together to sort of demand a different pricing structure and vendor so that we could afford to do the trail. Okay, the next item is, what are the plans for DART's 60 to 90 Silver Line trains, which are proposed to go at grade over the Preston Ridge Trail? So Maura, I think Jared touched on that they're working at different ways to grade separate it. I don't think there's an answer yet. Jared, do you have anything else to say on that?
So, you know, right now it's being planned as an at-grade crossing, and there is a proposal as part of the plans that, again, we'll know more when we see what these are in July. But I think they're proposing like to have the quad gates like you would over Meandering Way, like you do over Roadway. They would have similar type gates over the trail. There are examples of this along Tex Rail throughout the cities going from Grapevine to Fort Worth. So there are various safety controls that can be put in place for an at-grade crossing, but we're really trying to explore how can we get grades separated. So again, there's going to be more to come on that.
Great, thank you. Jandis is saying, sorry, oh, okay. Brian is asking, is the trail going to be completed when the railroad's completed, or is it completed afterwards?
It's very likely going to be completed afterwards. Again, unless something, we're really trying to get as much built as we can. The initial is, you know, how do we focus on getting things built? Some things have to be built immediately with the rail line. So we're working with our partners on how we look at priorities and phasing. Our priority is to build the entire thing at the same time as the rail line and have it done, because that's what we were originally discussed and that's what we were funded to do. So we're still having those conversations. Our goal is to have it completed at the same time, but we're having to work that out with kind of our regional partners and again how the funding works out.
And I'll just say that the Regional Transportation Council, which I sit on, we've had this discussion about critical sections, meaning think about Hillcrest, how we're scooping out the street, right? The street's going to go down 18 feet, and there's going to be all sorts of support walls, right, to hold up the trestle that the train will go across. Well, those support walls also have to be able to hold the bridge for the trail. And certainly when there's an active train going, we're not going to be able to go back and do anything. So it has to be built at the same time. Same thing for Preston Green Park. There's no way when you have that active train there that we're going to be able to deal with a giant creek. And if you've been in that area, you know it's very, very deep, and get that work done. So that's a critical section as well. So Coit Road, if it's not designed in as the road is going up and the train is going down, we're never going to be able to go back and fix that. So all the critical sections are being fully designed, and my understanding is probably all funded, but I'm not sure that's been committed yet. So yes, it won't be at the same time. I expect that we'll have in the next bond package for the city, we'll have funding for this. Dallas County has already pledged $1 million, and I'm just now talking to Collin County about having them pledge to help us with the Collin County section of the Cotton Belt Trail that's in Dallas. So let's see, Mac. Oh, you've got a lid that's broken on your recycle bin. You've been trying for 3 months with 311. You didn't get help. And how do you get a new lid?
So that should be a pretty easy one. I put my email address in the chat. It's timothy.oliver@dallascityhall.com. For 2 reasons. If I could get your information, I can obviously get your bin swapped out, but then I also want to see where the shortcoming in 311 is so that we can fix that if there's a problem there, obviously. But that should be an easy one. If you'll just email me your name and address, I'll get that swapped out immediately.
Awesome. Thank you. Are you considering changing the frequency of bulk pickups? If you can't provide monthly on schedule, can you do better with every other month? We hear you're understaffed. What is being done to get you staffing where it's needed?
So really great questions. Yes, we have, I'll just be frank and honest. We've been trying to get some changes to our bulk trash program for several years. I myself have been to committee and council 4 times over the last 3 years. We did get some incremental changes that went into effect last year that simply limited the size of the piles down to 10 cubic yards. And while that was beneficial, it really didn't move the needle. It really just eliminated some of the bad actors that were taking advantage of the program. In reality, the data showed that close to 95% of residents were putting out less than 10 cubic yards anyway. So we really only reduced the impact, it really only impacted 5 people. But to answer your question, yes, we want to change it. Dallas has what I'll call the most lucrative bulk trash program in the country. And that's just a fact that it's monthly pickup, and until last year it was unlimited. Without any separation. Most cities our size have twice a year bulk pickup and monthly green waste pickup. Some have 4 bulk pickups and no green waste pickup. Ours is it's just quite honestly very lucrative. And because it's lucrative and folks are allowed to put out so much so often, what we see is that many residents that are commercial contractors as well, they're bringing their trash from work at home and sitting it at your curb month in and month out. There are contractors that come from outside the city and place bulk trash out because they know that we'll pick it up. And so we would like to see some changes. We would really like to see some diversion where we're able to separate the green waste away from the bulk trash, limit the amount of bulk trash, and then really reduce the amount of time that it has to spend at the curb, because we know that is a great pain point for everyone. Is you sit it out there the Thursday before, even if we're on time, it can be out there for 10 days. And if we're behind, it could be out there 2 weeks or even longer. And we realize that that is a very big pain point. And we would like to change that as well. We need council support, and I know Ms. Mendelsohn is going to help us move that along. Regarding staffing, there's no other way to put it other than we are greatly short on staffing. I've got about 35 truck driver positions that are vacant, and I track it monthly, and it's been moving around that number for the last 3 years. And I, we're under the belief that it directly relates to compensation. It's a very lucrative position in DFW right now. There are lots of construction jobs. There are lots of truck driver jobs. And we're competing against the private sector that, quite frankly, is paying a lot more than the city is. So the city recently completed a compensation study, and we're hopeful that with working with HR and the support of the city manager's office, that we'll be able to significantly increase the amount that we're able to offer these truck drivers, so that we can get them in the door. But it's a big problem. Another issue that we're dealing with related to staffing is the temporary laborers that ride on the back of the truck. They are, quite frankly, they're not coming to work right now, and we hear from them that we're competing against some of the stimulus payments and the unemployment payments. They're probably some of the lower wage jobs out there, and with some of the enhanced unemployment payments, quite frankly, they're telling us that it's just as lucrative for them to stay at home, and that's really unfortunate. But just as an example, yesterday we were short 42 laborers. The guys that ride on the back of the truck, that's citywide. 42 is a big number. And we're working with procurement and our contractor who helps us bring those individuals in. But it's a struggle, and I want to be honest, and I've told the council woman this. It's a struggle that we deal with every day, and when the volumes are at normal levels, we manage. We work overtime, 60, 70 hours a week, and that's how we bridge the gap of those staffing shortages. But when the volumes are like they are right now, it's a hill that we aren't able to climb over at any reasonable time frame.
Okay. What do y'all think about that answer? The only thing I want to add to that is, number one, yes, we need to pay people competitively, and I say that about our public safety officers, and I'm going to say that about sanitation also. I will say, though, that this item has not come to council since I've been on council. It came to council, in fact, right before I was elected the first time, and the prior council made decisions that just went into effect in 2020. So I do think it needs to be looked at. Traditionally, this is under the purview of a committee called Quality of Life. Quality of Life hasn't taken it up since I've been in office, and I have written a memo asking for it to come instead to Government Performance and Financial Management, which is kind of what we call the Budget Committee. But I'm the chairman of that one, and so I've asked for this briefing and this topic to come to us. We'll see how that goes politically. The next question is, will there be security cameras at the trail? How do you prevent graffiti at the sound walls, specifically at night without lighting?
Excellent questions. Okay. So regarding cameras, that's a very timely question because we're reviewing that kind of internally. Historically, we have not installed cameras on trails. However, lately we have been. There are some that have gone in on the Sopak Trail in the Vickery Meadows area, then again on the Runyon Creek Trail down in southern Dallas. So this is something that we're looking at kind of from a policy standpoint. Again, I say as soon as that trail opens, Probably not, but again, by the time the trail gets built, if it is built in phases, we might be able to integrate that type of phasing into it. Prevention of graffiti. I'm not the graffiti expert, so I don't know how I don't know if there's different treatments we could do on the sound walls. We'd probably have to work with DART on graffiti remediation and other city staff on that one. I will say, if we're kind of getting into security, just like any other trail, we will have our 911 signs. If you've been out on other trails, we have, has an acronym for the name of the trail. It has the numbers on it, so when you call 911, they know exactly where you are. Then also, whenever a trail is turned over to the city, it kind of quote unquote becomes a park, like park rules start applying. So that way we get better responses from DPD and other types of things.
And as part of a park, it's not a 24-hour trail.
Correct.
Is the trail inside or outside the sound wall?
To my understanding, it's always outside the sound walls. Yeah.
Yes. I actually asked the same question, just so you know. That's okay, Brian's saying, thanks. 70 miles is a long way for round trip. Is it difficult to implement a process to separate the green waste?
So there's a way that we think that we can do it that is less difficult than it has to be. One way we've proposed it is alternating months. 1 month being bulk, the next month being green waste. That's kind of an incremental step. Ultimately, we would want to maybe get a yard waste program, a monthly yard waste program, and then whether it be on-call bulk or twice a year bulk, that's where we would like to be, we believe. But alternating bulk and brush would be something that we could implement rather quickly because it would be the same amount of vehicles. What we would gain there is simply the ability to divert the green waste because it would be separated. So the more complex you get it, where the more vehicles that you add, then obviously it's going to take longer to implement. But the change is necessary. It's obvious from the predicament that we're in right now, and it seems to be coming around every year. We seem to have these events every year, whether it be windstorms, tornadoes, freezes. That when those events come around, that's when we get into the trouble. So to answer your question, it doesn't have to be terribly difficult. Any change is going to be painful to a certain degree, but the alternating bulk and then brush would be the easiest.
Great. Brian, I can see you have two questions, so I'm going to just combine them. And the question is, why is the trail pricing higher? And is DART's vendor higher than the typical market if you got a normal bid process? And what percent higher is it? And I'm just going to tell you that Archer Western Herzog, which is building the rail, was originally supposed to do the rail and the trail. And yes, the cost that they were giving the member cities for the trail were more than double what everyone felt was market. So altogether, we strongly encourage DART to do a new procurement for the trail so that the pricing would be better. And, really what that meant for us is that, if you're paying twice the amount that you were anticipating, then you're not building the whole thing. And so it became very problematic. So that is all being worked out. Zaylene is asking, when will sanitation have a permanent head? And I think Joey Zapata was on the call. Did you want to answer that one, Joey? Joey's the assistant city manager, and part of his portfolio is sanitation. He may have left. Tim, is it awkward for you to answer that question?
No, it's not awkward. Interviews were done. If it wasn't last week, it was week before last. The city brought in a recruiting firm to help assist, finding a permanent replacement. And I know the interviews are done. I don't know the status beyond that. I don't think a decision has. If it's been made, it hasn't been brought forward. But it's fairly imminent. I think that's the best way to put it. It's fairly imminent.
And my understanding from the city manager is that that we were to expect to have that role in place by July 1. With adding a DART line, will there be additional DART stations needed? How do we get the alleys redone? DART says they have no intention of adding additional stations at this time. And how do you get the alleys redone? Well, first, let me say, are you sure that yours isn't on the list? There's not that many on the list, but we do have this handy dandy document. Oh, this isn't it. Oh, here it is, right in front of me. It is our 5-year infrastructure management plan, and sometimes I show people this. I don't know if you can see it, but these are the little paper clips that show our area. And so if you contact us, although this is on the website, we're happy to look up, and you'll see the little highlighted sections for District 12, and it tells us in what year, what roads, what alleys are being redone, and we're happy to share that with you. You can find it on the website. If you go to dallascityhall.com and you go to Public Works, and then they have a left menu, and it's the 5-year infrastructure management plan, and then you can find it from within that. But I know that's a lot of menu items to go to find it, so if you email us, we're happy to help you with it. The city does not fund very many alley reconstructions, so just as we are underfunding street maintenance. And it's a big discussion amongst council members. I am probably the most pro infrastructure funding on the council. And that's kind of why I'm chuckling, like, yeah, well, I wish we could do more, because my philosophy is that if we build it, we should also maintain it. So as the budget season comes, I will beg you, ask you, plead with you to be part of it, and to make your voice heard, saying this is what's important to you and what you want your tax dollars to be spent on. So you'll be getting more messages about that and how to make your voice heard on these budget priorities. But as it stands right now, we do not even fund our street maintenance at a level that keeps it at the same bad level it's at. So every year our streets get worse, even though we're investing millions of dollars into it. And that includes with the money from the bond. So we really need dedicated funding. We need a funding stream that will continue to care for our assets. So that's my soapbox about alleys and streets. Please don't go longer than once a week for trash recycling pickup. Oh, I don't think anyone wants to do that. Tim and Gretchen are saying, why not chip on the street as green waste is collected and require it to be separated?
So requiring the separation is what we've been talking about, changing the program. That's where we want to be. As far as chipping on the street, we've tried that, and it's not a real clean process. They have to kind of shoot it up inside the trailer, and it's really loud, and we start early sometimes, and it just wasn't a great fit for us. We found it better kind of during the tornado and the wind event to have a lot that was relatively close to the areas we were collecting from, haul there, and then chip on a really large scale. When we tried to do it on the street, we just had stuff going everywhere, and it wasn't a pleasant scene. If I'll go on to the next question. I know we're running out of time. We're talking about collecting compost. This all ties together. Once we were able to go to our next phase of bulk and brush changes, as soon as we are able to separate our green waste from bulk, we will begin a composting program. We're already permitted at the landfill for composting. Once we get an approval for separating the bulk brush and changing that program, we'll start that. And actually the intent is, once we start it, to give back where residents could collect mulch for their flower beds, come pick up compost, and then potentially even selling it to contractors to help offset some of the costs, bring the cost of service down. So that's the direction we're going. We hope to be there sooner than later.
So Tim, that's a great answer. Luis has put in the chat the link for the infrastructure management plan for folks if you want to copy that. The other thing I would just say about sanitation in general is that, number one, we're not just working with the sanitation department, we're also working with code compliance to do some innovative things. I will say sanitation is looking at an interlocal agreement with the city of Plano to possibly use their transfer station. Pretty much we're going to beg, but that would cut down on that really giant trip to the transfer station off of Harry Hines or down to McComas. Number two, we're going to do a 4-month pilot program with code compliance that would allow our residents to drop off various kinds of items on their own. Now, not everyone's going to be able to do that, right? So if you only have a very tiny car, if you are disabled, if you are weak like me and you just can't lift stuff, that's fine. But for the people who are interested in doing it because they hate it in front of their house, or they just feel like I can go take care of it, then again, it's going to lower that volume for sanitation if some people choose to do it on their own. So anything we can do to add to removing some of the pounds that are left out and the yards, I think you call them cubic yards, right? We're going to try it. Plus, it will increase our ability to recycle. So I think there's a lot of awareness and interest in our district in supporting recycling initiatives. And so all of this is being worked out. Still not there yet. But there is a big interest, and I think they recognize both our District 12 and District 8, which is the southernmost district, because we are so far from some of the city services. Now, District 8 is closer to the landfill, but we have some of the same challenges that there's an interest in doing that kind of program here. Councilmember Kleiman and I have been talking for quite some time about what if there was an on-demand program, right? So, I don't use bulk trash every month, but when I need it, I need it. And so why couldn't I just have a designated number of times a year that I could call and do my on-demand? And then we would have a routing system, and they would say, okay, well, today is Thursday, we will be out on Tuesday. So then we would put it out for Tuesday. So I do think there's a lot of different solutions, but we've got to get to one that works for our city. And there may not be just one answer. So don't freak out when you hear things like, oh, we're not going to do alley collection. We're going to do alley collection in District 12. We have modern alleys, but there's parts of our city that have alleys that are, 150 years old and they're tiny and the trucks can't get through, and they already have a front driveway and garage. They could do it out front. So like I said, every answer and every solution isn't right for every part of the city. And we just need to have a really thoughtful plan, because all of us deserve better service than I think what we're getting. And I don't think it's because they're not working really hard. I think they're working a tremendous number of hours. I think they're really trying. And again, Tim, thank you so much for making it happen for us for this week. But our residents pay for this service, and they deserve to be able to count on it being picked up. So we need to do better as a city. And I thank you for the suggestions that you have, and I think that they'll be fully discussed. So with that, it's 8 o'clock. Reagan's saying, thanks guys, love the sanitation ILA idea with Plano. Please look at all the cities around us up here. Yes, if it doesn't work out with Plano, which is of course only 2 blocks, their transfer station's right on Plano Parkway, then I think, we have to look over at Carrollton and some of our other cities. Thank y'all for being here. I hope you'll come back next week and we'll have a big old conversation with David Leininger with DART. And I hope you have a safe, wonderful week. Take care. Thanks again for Tim and Jared for being here.
Great. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Good night. Good night. Thank you. Good night, everybody.